Most women are not so young as they are painted, said Max Beerbohm. In 1988, women the world over spent nearly $20 billion on making themselves beautiful. At the turn of the century, the beauty industry did not exist. Women made up their own recipes at home, using natural ingredients like rosewater and glycerine. Now, beauty is a huge international industry. Factories have production lines stretching as far as the eye can see, duplicating to infinity the pots of face cream, the skin tonics, the lipsticks, eyeshadows, perfumes, and the powders, which are the frontline weapons in the long, drawn-out war against ugliness.
You are so beautiful to me, can't you see?
Ever since the 20s, emotive advertising has accelerated the growth of this huge multinational industry. The idea that everyone has the right to make the best of themselves is largely due to the achievements of three exceptional women of the 20th century: Elizabeth Arden, Helena Rubinstein, Estée Lauder. Three queens in the beauty hive, the beauty queens. Born Florence Nightingale Graham, Elizabeth Arden believed that beauty should involve the whole woman, not just her face. She preached exercise, treatments. The red doors of her salons concealed a genius for promotion. Outwardly, her life was a whirl of society parties, but her racehorses were nearest to her heart. If I had her advertising and she my products, we'd conquer the world, said Helena Rubinstein, her rival. Glamorous, tempestuous, exotic, Helena Rubinstein had a unique sense of personal style. For over 60 years, she ruled the international empire based on her own image. Friend of artists, a voracious collector, she forged direct links between modern art and modern beauty. She was brilliant at developing new concepts. A corporate bully, she always thought of her laboratories as her kitchen. Estée Lauder is still, in her 80s, the superb, hands-on saleswoman she has always been. Her name dominates department stores, which have become the salons of today.
There's no such thing as bad business. You can have the finest product in the world. If you don't know how to sell it, you got nothing.
The promotional genius who linked lifestyle to beauty, she still patrols her beauty counters with the fierce dedication of a true beauty queen. Three women whose destiny was to pursue beauty and happiness, a quest which took them out of the ordinary and into a rarefied world of achievement, wealth, fame, and power. The beauty queens.
All over the world, wherever women care for beauty, they look to Helena Rubinstein, internationally famous authority on beauty care. In Paris, in London, in Rio de Janeiro, and in the great Fifth Avenue Salon in New York.
All her long life, some of Helena Rubinstein's happiest hours were spent in the laboratories. Even to this day, she said when she was in her 90s, I think of our immense laboratories as kitchens. Dressed in a couture suit, a little furry bowler hat set square on her head, she mixed and tested, sniffed and blended, invented and developed her beauty ideas, as a housewife might make soup. I believe that my long lifetime of working and striving has answered a need, said Helena Rubinstein at the age of 94. I fulfilled an important function in helping women to find their rightful heritage of beauty. By the end of her life, over 1,000 products bore the name of this despot of beauty. For not only did Helena look like an Oriental empress, she had the temper to match. A brilliant businesswoman, in an era where no woman would even admit to being able to add up, she spent fortunes on paintings and collections of houses and the furniture to go in them. Her jewels and her clothes were legendary in an age of incredible luxury. She was one of the richest and most famous women in the world for nearly 6 decades, and the world always called her Madame. In her teens, she was very striking and very headstrong. She was already searching for a more glorious fate than that promised by the provincial life of Krakau, the sleepy Polish town where she was born on Christmas Day in 1870. She grew up in a large, shabby house not far from the cathedral. The Rubinsteins had rich relations, but they were poor. Helena, the eldest, had to help bring up her 7 younger sisters. They called her the Eagle, as she ruled the nursery high up under the eaves. Later, she would rule her sisters, her husband, her children, and her empire. The Polish actress, Modjeska, was a friend of the family, and it was she who introduced a cream that had been made specially for her to the Rubinstein women. It was called crème Valaz.
Quand je partis de Pologne, ma mère m'a donné une douzaine de pots de crème que nous avons comme enfants, comme jeunes filles de 10, 12, 15 ans. Nous avons employé chaque soir. Oui, c'était un docteur polonais qui avait la recette. Mais cette crème, j'emploie jusqu'à maintenant. Moi, j'emploie cette crème pour nettoyer la peau.
At 28, worried she was still not married, her mother sent her to live with an uncle in Coleraine, a small town outside Melbourne. Helena learned to ride horses in Australia. The sun was strong, the wind violent, and the never-ending pasture gave me the pip, Helena said. She hated the heat and the horses. Her mother had packed 12 pots of the crème Valaz in her luggage. My 12 pots of cream were the cornerstone of my life, Helena always said.
Quand j'ai habité en Australie, où le climat est terrible, très chaud, terrible chaud. Moi, j'étais accoutumée à un climat comme en Russie, à Pologne. Mais c'était très bien pour moi parce que ça m'a aidé beaucoup.
The idea of perfection at the time was a porcelain complexion that had never seen the sun. Society beauties such as Lady Randolph Churchill, the Duchess of Devonshire, or the Duchess of Rutland never made themselves up. It would have been social death. Even actresses like Constance Collier or Edward VII's mistress, Lily Langtry, only wore rice powder and rouge. These were English beauties living in a soft English climate. They had perfect skins. In the harsh sunlight of Australia, Helena was her own best advertisement. In contrast to the weather-beaten complexions of the Australian women, her creamy skin was little short of a miracle. When the women in the outback heard about the cream and compared Helena's skin to theirs, they all wanted to try it. She started selling it at 4 shillings a jar. It wasn't long before she had to order and reorder the cream. She seized this thin lifeline to get her as far as Melbourne. If the ladies in Coleraine were prepared to pay for the cream, she reasoned, so might the more sophisticated women in Melbourne. On a borrowed £250, she opened her first tiny salon or laboratory on the main street. And here it was, that she started her lifelong quest for beauty.
J'ai gagné beaucoup d'expérience en Australie pendant les 3-4 ans, mais je n'étais pas du tout contente. Je voulais étudier avec les différents docteurs, scientists, à Berlin, à Vienne. Et je sacrifiais encore 18 mois à l'étude. Et après ça, je commençais à Londres. J'ai engagé une doctrice de Vienne et une autre de Leipzig.
Why Helena chose to live and work in London, she never revealed. It was the centre of an empire of which Australia was but a part, and shrewd businesswoman that she was, she may have thought it better to be at the centre than on the periphery. She took her beauty mission straight to the heart of Mayfair, at the centre of aristocratic London, where she opened a salon. Her fee was 10 guineas for a course of 12 beauty treatments, the equivalent of $1,000 today.
Moi, je commençais avec l'aristocratie de Londres. C'était un grand succès.
When Helena arrived in London in 1900, society was led by Edward VII and his Danish queen Alexandra. It was a brilliantly luxurious age, and one in which, from the king downwards, new ideas were welcomed. Clever advertising to the wealthy ensured it was not long before Alexandra, the most exquisite royal leader of fashion, became one of Helena's clients. In the 10 brief years of Edward's reign, London society was the most pleasure-loving in Europe. Court balls were glittering occasions. The beauties of the age sauntered in the park, protecting their complexions with parasols. They went racing in silks, laces, and huge hats. Wealth and the leisure it earned gave them the time to pursue the elusive goal of beauty, greatly to Helena's profit. Once a dowdy, rather dull provincial Polish girl, Helena now began to become acquainted with the social world. With her newly acquired money, she followed her society clients to the Paris couturiers, masters of silk and lace such as Charles Worth, who made this dress. For the rest of her life, she would always wear the most beautiful and cleverly chosen clothes. After the death of Edward VII in 1910, society mourned in deepest black, even for Ascot. London became a sad, dull city without the leadership of Edward VII. The business of beauty suffered. The frivolous Paris of the Belle Époque beckoned to Helena. Establishing her sister, Manka, in London to look after the business, Helena went to Paris to investigate. A friend told her that her scientific approach would satisfy the practicality of the French woman, while her products would feed their craving for luxury. She bought a small beauty business on the Faubourg Saint-Honoré. I wrote letters to a few of the smartest women in Paris, she said. I offered them a complimentary Swedish massage. Colette was among the first to show up. After it was over, she felt so good that she said in the newspapers, "Massage is a woman's sacred duty. Without it, how can they hope to keep a lover?"
1912.
En 1912, à Paris.
Je commençais à Paris, c'était la même chose. Et pendant cette année, je me mariais avec un Américain.
Edward Titus was an American journalist she had originally met in Melbourne. He followed her to London, where he spent a long time trying to persuade her that she should marry him. A cultivated man with avant-garde taste, he introduced her to a new world, the world of modern ideas, including the clashing of colours of Diaghilev's Ballet Russe. Helena also discovered that the new Oriental look created by Paul Poiret was perfect for her exotic good looks. I hated the first dress he made me and said so. He was furious and tore it to ribbons, she remembered. But Poiret forgave her and made her many wonderfully exotic clothes which set off her lacquered Oriental beauty to perfection. Modern ideas were always Madame's métier. The more far-fetched, the better. For Theda Bara, the sultry star of A Fool There Was and other vampish pictures, Helena experimented with coal and invented a mascara for her, which became Mascara-matic years later. Sarah Bernhardt became a customer. So did the famous Comédie Française actress Cécile Sorel. Her mission of beauty was always the most important part of her life. She adopted more and more advanced techniques, always emphasizing treatments as well as cosmetics. Many of her early innovations were years ahead of their time. So good were treatments, such as these facial massages, that they are still in use now.
And spread it firmly on your neck and contour.
Her niece, Mala, demonstrates one such treatment in the late 50s.
And under your eyes. And start patting, because here the contour needs attention. Just pat it in with me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In a rhythmic movement right on your expression lines. And then from your jaw to the temples. 1, 2, 3. You just feel that lovely firming movement. And then under your eyes, very gently, because here the skin always has a little tendency to puffiness. You apply it till the contour lift is entirely absorbed by your skin.
Helena and her family stayed in Paris until 1915. Then, alarmed by events and fearing the safety of her husband, who was an American citizen, and her 2 very small sons, Horace and Roy, Helena, too, retreated from Europe. Before her first year was up, Helena opened her salon on West 49th Street and began to advertise, featuring cream valase and informing readers that queens, princesses, celebrated artists, and leaders of high society all acknowledged Madame Helena Rubinstein to be the world's greatest beauty culturalist.
Quand war,
La guerre
la guerre
est arrivée.
nous sommes partis à New York. J'étais tellement étonnée de voir les Américains. C'était en hiver. C'était froid. Moi, j'étais accoutumée à froid. Mais les nez s'ouvrent et la poudre que chaque femme employait blanc, blanc, blanc. C'était si vilain.
Women had now joined the workforce, and it was the beginning of the Jazz Age, which heralded a great era of social change. None more dramatic than the role and the looks of women. From pale-faced, elaborately swatched, mature figures, they went on diets to become fashionably boyish. They then began to wear a great deal of makeup. Helena herself adopted the Jazz Age look enthusiastically. The ripe Oriental exotic was giving way to the cloche flapper. As soon as the war was over, Helena hurried back to Paris. Helena found the Parisians frantically determined to enjoy themselves. Now she too began to go to society parties through the introductions of her new friend, Monsieur Certes, friend not only to artists, but to hostesses such as the Duchess de Clermont-Tonnerre and Marie-Laure de Noailles. She socialized and she played at the huge parties that were given just after the First World War. But to Helena, work always came first. while she worked in her little factory on the outskirts of Paris, surrounded by white-coated assistants, she stirred brews and watched mixtures bubble. She was always experimenting, always searching for an elusive new beauty idea. Mounds of fruit and flowers were crushed and boiled in vats. The perfumed fields of grass were plundered for herbs and flowers. Precious attar of roses, the essence of violets, were distilled into pure scent. Powders and pomades, scents and creams were all brewed up under her sharp eye to satisfy the demands of her growing beauty empire. By the end of her life, she employed over 30,000 people in the demanding service of beauty. But Helena, being Helena, was never satisfied. Her restless mind and extraordinary energy always needed more to do. At night, the laboratory technician emerged like a butterfly from the chrysalis of her white coat and went dancing with friends, such as Monsieur Cert, whose taste inspired Helena in many ways. She was very knowledgeable, said Helena. It was she who gave him the idea of being painted. All the portraits, good for publicity, good for investment, good for all the empty walls. The most famous is the portrait of Helena by Gray and Sutherland. It is a map of all the lines and wrinkles that retouched photography never showed. It is very imposing, said one art critic. It will be bad for business, said Helena. Marie Laurencin painted Helena as an Indian Maharani, ignoring the reality that Helena was 64 when she sat for the portrait. Raoul Dufy saw Helena as a spry, sportive woman of fashion with self-questioning eyes. Chalichev painted her as a shadowy sibyl and stuck sequins to the famous alabaster skin. Even the surrealistic extravagance of Salvador Dali did not deter her from sitting for him. He saw her as a female Prometheus, bound to the rock of her possessions and her passions by rubies. Her hands in a separate study are supported by crutches in a lunar landscape. Roberto Montenegro painted her into a woman of fashion in a gold-braided jacket by Schiaparelli. Helena proved that true style is ageless. These photographs were taken while she was in her 60s. The hard architectural lines of Schiaparelli suit her elegantly hard cameo beauty. Schiaparelli's designs for Helena project in a curious way her fieriness, her singularity, and her independent outlook. Cecil Beaton saw her as a surreal icon. He painted flowers on a transparent screen to soften yet focus on her hardness. All her life she was an eager subject for photographers and worked hard at cultivating a photogenic image. Unlike Elizabeth Arden, Helena used her own image in her advertising. It was good for business, because it was her carefully constructed image, her style, her singularity that women were buying with every pot labeled Helena Rubinstein. In the early 20s, Helena, her two sons, and Titus moved into a magnificent modern house on the boulevard Raspail. It was near the Dôme Café, a haunt of writers and artists. Here, Titus put on new plays and readings from books he published through his Black Mannequin press. He published D.H. Lawrence's short story, The Sun, and Helena told Lawrence how much she disapproved of it. It did too much to encourage the cult of sun-worshipping, she felt. Even 60 years ago, she knew that prolonged sunbathing was dangerous, and she told Lawrence so. If I had known, he apparently replied, I would have scrapped the story or made it anti-Sun. Let me write your beauty advertisements, James Joyce said. I'll use the style of Ulysses, and women will be so puzzled they will rush out and buy. After all, he told Helena, they only want to escape from themselves. But however much the rooms were filled with Colette and Hemingway, Cocteau and Anatole France, the private apartments had something of the air of an empty stage set. The truth is that Helena and Titus had grown apart over the years. He was interested in avant-garde art and writing. Helena was obsessed by her work, more work, and making money. The house they shared together reflects, in a disquieting way, the essential emptiness of their private life. It was not long before Titus turned to the consolation of a series of young women. Helena worked even harder, and they grew further apart, separating in the late 20s. Once inside the Second Empire building on the Faubourg Saint-Honoré, Helena's Paris beauty salon expressed her taste for the modern too. Here was a sparkling laboratory of beauty. Frill and fuss gave way to chrome, steel, and mirrors, which reflected her clients' every aspect to infinity. It was a world away from the boudoir style cultivated by other beauty salons in Paris at the time. The stark clinical decoration of the treatment rooms indicated, too, the fact that during the 20s, beauty had become big business, its turnover many, many millions. Clients, from society women to the ladies of the demi-monde, loved the luxurious but modern atmosphere. But in spite of their scientific surroundings, beauty treatments were still at a primitive stage. How-to demonstrations became very popular. Such semi-scientific innovations as electric massage were new and exciting too. The first modern face masks were invented. Skin toning and cleansing became an everyday art. However, the cosmetics of the time look harsh, garish, and far too heavy to our modern eyes. In the middle of the 20s, Helena employed 3 of her sisters in the business, and the 4 women were known as the Polish Mafia. All were still ruled, as they had been in the nursery in long-ago Krakow, by their eldest sister. She held her empire together by constant travel on one or other of the luxury liners plying between Europe and America. Even though she belonged to a group who treated travel, indeed life, as one long glamorous party, she also read the Wall Street Journal every morning. At the beginning of 1929, the world might have appeared carefree, but to Helena's sensitive nose, trouble was on the way. So she decided to convert her American business into cash. Sailing to New York on one of the first boats of the season, she sold out of Helena Rubinstein America to Lehman Brothers, the bankers, who bought it for $8 million in cash. And then came October 1929, and the pack of cards toppled. Wall Street crashed, and so did the world economy. Paper was out, cash was in. And Rubinstein stock, which at its 1929 high had stood at 26 1/4, plummeted down, and at its lowest, it hit 1/8. Helena waited until early 1930, and then she pounced. She forced Lehman Brothers to sell the business back to her at her price, well under $2 million. How did she make a profit of over $6 million in less than a year? She wrote hundreds of personal letters to small stockholders who were mostly women. Many gave Helena their proxy vote. She also bought whatever shares came on the market and forced Lehman to sell the company back to her cheap. All it took was a little chutzpah, she explained. It was 1930. She was finally divorced from Titus and she had made a fortune. Now was the time to spend some of the money on herself. She bought a ruined 18th century house on the Ile Saint-Louis from Mizia Sert's husband. The architect, Louis Sue, built a new apartment house for her, and she lived on the top 3 floors. Here she kept her collection of African tribal art, and here she played the piano under a Renoir. In the large dining room, Helena hung her Modigliani, together with paintings by Miro, Dufy, and Picasso. But the huge roof terrace was the most spectacular part of this extraordinary apartment. One vast landscape terrace, it had fountains, mirrored arbours of ivy over trellis, and enough space to hold a ball. Here Helena gave parties for artists such as Chagall, Derain, Marie Laurencin, and Matisse, whom she found cold and difficult to deal with when she tried to bargain with him. Expatriate writers such as Ernest Hemingway came, and so did the new leaders of post-war Paris society, such as the Comtesse de Noailles and Coco Chanel. The tout Paris came to sit in the shady mirrored arbours on hot afternoons to enjoy the most fabulous view in the city. But there were some who did not come. Being Jewish, Helena would always be barred from the old aristocratic society. But she didn't care. The weekends found Helena roughing it at her 18th century mill house at Comme-la-Ville. Here she would wear casual clothes, but her chignon was always immaculate, her face always made up. She was never off duty, for being a beauty queen is a 24-hour-a-day occupation. Appearances to the contrary, Helena led an essentially solitary life after her divorce. One night in 1935 at bridge, she drew as her partner a Russian prince. His full name was Prince Archil Goreli-Chikonye. Big, handsome, he was frank and fun, and Helena enjoyed herself. In 1938, bridge led to marriage, and Helena became the Princess Gurieli. The prince and princess enjoyed life, and when Helena got restless, they decamped to New York. The lights were never brighter than just after the Depression. Jazzy Broadway openings were once-a-week events. New cocktails like Wicked Lady or Sidecar were chilling throats. Supper clubs and cinemas seemed to be open all night. Musicals had leggy chorus lines a block long, and everyone was on the move, fueled by endless dry martinis. Dance, 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 little lady was the motto of the time. This busy social and economic hive was perfect for the busy beauty queen. Beauty products were caught up in the hustle and bustle. More and more women began to believe in the subtly worded claims of the advertisements. To these new customers, the carefully cultivated image of Helena Rubinstein represented what could be achieved if one worked hard and spent half an hour a day on beauty treatments. By the end of the 30s, Helena's business had become an international empire. Seska ran London, Manco ruled Paris, and other sisters were employed here and there in the business as well. Middle-class women, not just queens, princesses and earls' daughters, now believed beauty was their right, and they could now afford to buy the beauty dream. This is when the beauty business really expanded. Thousands of middle-class women could see her ageless glamour for themselves, and they loved the makeup lessons, which brought her message home all over Europe and America. Display material, always linking Helena to the products that bore her name, became global. But however many products, however long the beauty counters stretched to sell them, there would never be enough to satisfy the appetite of the huge new consumer market that was growing amongst women. When war was declared in 1939, Helena decamped to America. She had no regrets at leaving behind everything in Europe. Every time I return to America, she said, I get a new thrill and feel stimulated and inspired. She, who had always believed that the best antidote to worry was work, kept her factories in America going at full pressure. New presentations, new ways of packaging, all poured out from her factories as the beauty business climbed from millions to billions. The immediate post-war period was one of great prosperity and expansion in America. Rubinstein products sold at her salons all over America, but they also sold in department stores where women flocked to buy one of the 466 preparations which now bore her name. Women also found time to spend a day of beauty, getting themselves back into shape after the long war years, and made it an annual event. One young customer said such a day would turn a fishwife into a sybarite. Helena instinctively knew that women hungered for luxury, pampering, and the torture of flab treatment, and provided it. A woman could exercise in the salons. She could also be advised on the perfect perfume, or have a special Rubinstein powder blended just for her.
Every skin must be thoroughly cleansed, no matter what type of skin you have.
Treatment lessons, tutored by Mahler, were also popular.
Spread the pasteurize from your chin to your ears, from your nostrils to the temples, high on the forehead toward the temples, very, very gently around your eyes. Then rotate thoroughly on your nose and on your chin. And don't forget your neck.
The day of beauty could also include personal massage, facial misting, deep steaming, rubber masks and bubble baths cleansed and toned the skin. It looks primitive now, but it was the very latest thing in 1945. Jowls were eliminated by the hundreds. Women could have their eyelashes dyed or join in an eye lift class. Despot she might have been, but Helena had the common touch. Her employees loved her eccentricity and, above all, her enthusiasm. In the late 1940s, Madame once again proved that she was still ahead of her time when she launched a treatment and barber salon for men. She found a small townhouse on 56th Street, and using the prince's name and his image, as she had so successfully used her own for women's cosmetics, she opened the House of Guerra for men. She introduced such novelties as fresh colognes for men, bottled in what looked like macho cocktail shakers. The first floor was a barber shop, where men could enjoy a face mask and manicure or a neat trim in a traditional barbershop ambience. On the ground floor, she sold haberdashery and dressing gowns. It was clever, but it didn't work, and she closed it in the 50s. If she had been alive today, she would have seen her pioneering work in men's cosmetics justified. Even Helena sometimes had to relax. Her mas, or farm, in the south of France, which the prince encouraged her to build near Grasse, the source of so many of her ingredients, was somewhere she was happy. And she was never happier than when walking in the fields of fragrant flowers that she blended to great effect. Picasso was a great friend and neighbour. "She is as much a genius as I am," he once said. But even Helena could not persuade him to paint her portrait, though he made many sketches of her over the years. They were both powerful, and in the end, both enigmatic creatures of the modern world. Art was always Helena's great joy. Ever since she married Titus, she had known artists and bought their work. He collected artists, I collected their work, she said. She discovered Modigliani selling his paintings in a cafe. She bought Sculpture by Brancusi. Her hawk-like eye became more and more acute as she went to openings and visited ateliers to look at work in progress. She liked to talk to artists. Here she is with Diego Rivera and his wife Frida Kahlo, and with Archie Penko. She visited Van Dongen often in his studio and bought, amongst other things, a huge flower painting from him. Artists like Vlaminck liked to explain their work to her. As with female beauty, she had a sixth sense about art, and she did not buy for investment. She liked to live with her paintings wherever she was and whatever she was doing, even in her boardroom, where she hung her favourite Leger. Being seen with film stars and being photographed with them acted as a sort of indirect endorsement of her empire of beauty. Newspaper readers became familiar with Helena at home in Hollywood. She counted not only film stars, but musicians such as Arthur Rubinstein and Giancarlo Menotti as her friends. Even Eleanor Roosevelt was a chum. Golda Meir became a friend when Helena endowed an art pavilion in Tel Aviv, and to mark the occasion, she was photographed with the then Prime Minister, Ben Gurion. As the business grew bigger and bigger, Helena grew even more demanding of results from her staff. She constantly looked for new products that would attract the money of the post-war generation, eager for something new. Advertising became more and more important. Claims became more strident. Discoveries became miracles. Women were told that only 1 in 3 did not have major problems. In 1954, she was talking about the benefits of vitamin A. In 1958, she launched beauty aids containing hormones, estrogenic hormone cream for the face, estrogenic hormone oil for the throat, silk tone foundation special with estrogenic hormones as a foundation, and a hand lotion.
Do you select your lipstick blindly? You needn't to know when you own a Helena Rubinstein lipstick forecast individualized.
Helena was one of the first to realize that television could carry her beauty messages to more and more women.
Each of these contains 4 lipsticks and a chart showing your most flattering costume colors. Then, the lipstick cases are color keyed, so when you match case and costume, you know the lipstick is right for you. Helena Rubinstein's Color Keys, your 4 most flattering shades of lipstick, key to go with your costume colors. With a metal mirror on a little chain, just $1.50 for the set.
To cater for the demand, she opened huge factories in New Jersey. It was here that she got her hands sticky once again with new developments, using the knowledge she had so painstakingly learned years before in Leipzig and Vienna. She was never ever afraid of a new idea, and this was why one woman, working in what she still regarded as her kitchen, could influence such a huge industry. But all was not plain sailing. The Federal Drug Administration in America was beginning to turn its attention to extravagant beauty claims and restricting the use of some of the ingredients that Helena and others wanted to use. Helena was not pleased.
Helena Rubinstein Nude It, a soft, sweet as a rose cream. Apply it to legs, hair vanishes in minutes, right close to the root. Helena Rubinstein Silkscreen Face Powder. It gives you a skin like silk, for Helena Rubinstein atomizes pure silk in this fabulous powder.
The products were endless. Ingredients included pure silk, water lily buds, cucumber juice, Irish moss, Italian parsley and seaweed. Every beauty problem was attended to. There were subtle new scents, new masks, new complexion colors, even a primitive color computer.
Sensational new Colorama. It takes the guesswork out of makeup. Here's how the Colorama works. Let's say you're a brunette with an ivory complexion. Set the indicator, press the lever, see your ideal color tone. What is your color tone? It's the radiant effect of the right shade of foundation flowing through the right shade of powder. This dazzling blend of tone-on-tone is achieved with Silk Tone Foundation and Silkscreen Face Powder.
Just because I have money does not mean that I'm not helping people, Helena said. I cannot help making money. But she never forgot as she pushed forward the frontiers of beauty technology, the first principles that made her fortune.
Il faut toujours aider la nature. Il faut, parce que personne ne restera toujours jeune.
She was always intensely interested in anything new.
Si une jeune fille, si elle a une jolie peau, c'est pas la peine. Mais si elle a l'acné ou eczéma ou les pores ouverts, on peut couvrir. Mais dans tout cas, il faut tout heal. Il faut soigner. Premièrement, je crois qu'il faut que chaque femme connaisse sa peau. Comme ça, elle dépensera très peu, elle ne fera pas les erreurs. Dans une demi-heure par jour, chaque femme peut faire tout. Maintenant, chaque femme, même la plus conservative, maquille ses yeux. Je trouve que ça aide beaucoup.
Is this your mascara problem? It's messy, takes time, smudges, and you end up with stiff, stuck-together lashes. You need Helena Rubinstein's revolutionary new Mascara-matic, the first automatic mascara applicator. It's quick and easy as a wink. Watch. Mascara-matic opens like a pen, separates, curls, and darkens lashes. Instantly, your lashes look long, naturally thick, curly. And Mascara-matic contains Helena Rubinstein's waterproof mascara. We apply it to our model's hand, along with 2 other mascaras. We wet the hand, and look, these so-called waterproof mascaras smeared, but Helena Rubinstein's waterproof mascara won't run or streak. For beautiful lashes, quick as a wink, Use Helena Rubinstein's amazing new Mascara-matic.
In 1960, the annual expenditure worldwide on makeup, creams and treatments had topped the $10 billion mark. Helena's beauty salons were bursting with revolutionary beauty ideas. Perhaps it was from her friend Chanel that she got the idea of massing barbaric jewelry on her arms and round her neck. My love for jewels began as a small girl when my grandmother gave me a necklace of tiny seed pearls, she once said. To this day, there is always a feeling of mystery to me in the story behind pearls, and for that matter, all precious jewels. Small, beautifully cut jewels never appealed to her sense of drama. She preferred large stones. The larger, the better. An image created both for her own satisfaction and because it was good for business. Since I'm quite short, she said, I feel that these accessories, combined with the simple, often severe clothes I like, give me a definite identity. For a woman working hard in a man's world, this is important. After the Second World War, Helena spent most of her time in New York. Cecil Beaton did just one of the 26 rooms in the huge triplex apartment on Park Avenue. Beaton created a picture gallery in the Far Eastern manner, with bamboo paneling on the walls. She still collected whatever took her fancy and commissioned original new work, like the murals Morning, Noon and Night, which Dali painted for the card room. Classical Greek sculptures joined the Renoirs, the Modiglianis and the Matisse. The roof garden was Helena's delight.
The New York penthouse garden of Princess Gurieli, better known as Helena Rubinstein to women everywhere, and that includes little girls, is setting for an international fashion show. A formal gown from China opens the display, sponsored by the United Nations Women's Guild for the benefit of needy children.
Even though Seska and Manka were still alive, the mid-50s were a time of loss for Helena. The prince and her son, Horace, both died at about the same time. She became much closer to her niece, Mala, who had inherited the striking Rubinstein looks and perfect skin. She began to play a larger role in the empire, as she was the only one of the next generation who ever showed any interest in the beauty empire Helena had created.
Every morning and every night, apply Helena Rubinstein lanolin vitamin formula on your face, on your throat, concentrating at the corners of your mouth, above the lips, and very gently around your eyes. The vitamin A lubricates the outer layer of your skin, while the lanolin replenishes the moisture below the skin. In just few seconds, with the Helena Rubinstein lanolin vitamin, your skin will look younger, lovelier, and velvety smooth.
After the death of the prince, Helena found it difficult to remain in one place for any length of time. She fled loneliness and boredom on boats, trains, and planes, using as the excuse that she needed to oversee her empire. Restless and unhappy, she poured her energy into such projects as representing the American cosmetic industry in the 1959 World's Fair in Moscow. Russian women flocked to the little pavilion to see the demonstrations. Helena became a heroine to Russian women starved of beauty help. Her travels, partly to breathe down the necks of her employees, partly because she needed distraction, took her to Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, all round the world, and back to France, to the mill house of Comte de la Ville. Here, she found she was happy. She meddled with the flower garden, dressed in a Balenciaga suit, and stumped around the neat rows of vegetables like any frugal housewife. But as night fell, the shadows grew longer. Even her art collection was not enough to keep her company. She still went shopping, for antiques, for paintings, and for new beauty ideas wherever she was. She was often accompanied by old friends who could remember the best times with her. Friends such as Gloria Swanson, Marlene Dietrich. Madame still rated the front row in any couture collection. There she sat, this woman, old enough to be a great-grandmother, looking at clothes modelled by girls young enough to be her great-grandchildren. Still she marked the programme with the dresses she would buy for herself. Her head haloed in one of her perky little hats, she seemed eternal and immortal. In the last years of her extraordinary life, only one thing proved enduring. Her laboratories, the place she had always loved the best, the kitchen of her heart. Right up to the end of her life, she was driven by the twin demons of money and activity. Swathed in white mink, she peered into everything. Still sharp of eye, still looking, questioning, browbeating, she was very much in control. She still spent time over every minute detail. She could not bear to be idle, for if she stopped, she might stop forever. But even a beauty queen cannot stop time. Death, if and when I think of it, frightens me no more and no less than it would anyone of my age, Helena said at 90. Besides, I have always been so concerned with living that it is difficult for me to imagine the hereafter. So she wasted no time on speculation, but carried on as she had always done. And what if doctors insisted she spent most mornings in bed? She simply turned her bedroom into a boardroom. She still reigned. This very, very old woman died on April the 1st, 1965. She was 95. Was she ever afraid of death? Not in the least now, she said. I've waited too long. It should be an interesting experience.